Good afternoon or good morning, depending on when you're watching this. Today's lesson is going to be on textual analysis. So the first thing we want to know is what exactly is textual analysis? Well, textual analysis is essentially a close reading of a passage of text. Now, when I ask you guys to do your own textual analysis, I'm going to ask you to identify 6 elements. These elements are inferences, connections, and predictions, which you should all know from your literature circle homework. I'm also going to ask you to ask questions, identify a literary device, and determine the significance of the entire passage. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through this step by step and see exactly how to complete a textual analysis. So step 1, surprise, surprise, carefully read the passage of text a first time. When that's done, you can go over to step 2. So step 2 is to read the text a second time, but this time you want to take out a pencil and a highlighter, and you want to highlight anything that you find interesting or confusing. You want to annotate the text, clarify words you don't understand. You can draw in the margins if there's any imagery. Any little drawings or doodles you can do will also help your understanding. You want to underline anything that you think is important, and you want to paraphrase any parts of the text. So that means to take parts of the text and put it in your own words. So that's step 2. Now let's start identifying the elements. Step 3 is to make an inference. Now, in class, we learned that an inference is a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. So you use clues from the text to make an educated guess or a conclusion. So let's look at an example from the text. And this is from page 87. And it says, "Look at the colors," Papa said. "It's hard not to like a man who not only notices the colors, but speaks them." So from this passage, I can infer that Death appreciates Hans because he notices the colors just like Death does. So if you remember at the beginning of the novel, Death talks a lot about the colors and how they are a distraction for him. So he has something in common with Hans, so we can infer that he actually really does like Hans Huberman as a person. Step 4 of a textual analysis is to make a connection. There's 3 general types of connections you can make. There is text to text, so to a book, a movie, or television show. There's text to self, so to you, your family, your friends, anyone surrounding you in your life. And then text to world, to the news, media, or anything that has happened in history. A connection that I made in part 2 in part 1 actually, is from page 61. And it says, 2.5 years later, the Kaufman shoe shop was reduced to broken glass, and all the shoes were flung aboard a truck in their boxes. So from this, I made a text-to-world connection, and I connected this to Kristallnacht, or Kristallnacht in German, which was a series of attacks against Jews in Austria and Germany in 1938. And I explained this in class. You can Wikipedia this if you want to go over it again. So that's the connection I made. Step number 5 is to make a prediction using foreshadowing. Now, I think a lot of you had some trouble with predictions, and it's tough because you're trying to guess something that has not happened yet. To do this, you need to use foreshadowing. And as we saw in class, it's a literary device in which an author indistinctly suggests certain plot developments that will come later in the story. So you use foreshadowing to find hints that you can use to make a prediction. Here is the passage I used to make a prediction. So here's an example. It's from page 84. It says, "They enjoyed a good book burning, all right, which gave people who were partial to books the opportunity to get their hands on certain publications that they otherwise wouldn't have. One person who was that way inclined, as we know, was a thin-boned girl named Liesel Memminger. She may have waited 463 days, but it was worth it." So, from this passage, I predicted that Liesel will steal her second book, and she's going to steal it from a Nazi book burning ceremony. We know this from a couple of clues. So there's the book burning mentioned right here. And then he mentions the opportunity to get their hands on certain publications. He names Liesl Meminger. And then this last sentence right here is kind of the final clue to predict that she will in fact steal a second book, and it will be from a Nazi book burning ceremony. So you're just using clues that are put in the text from foreshadowing, and you're making a prediction with those. The sixth step is to ask a question, and it may seem a little bit strange to ask a question about the passage you're reading, but what asking a question will do is it will deepen your understanding of the passage, and more importantly, it will identify exactly what you're trying to figure out. So it will focus your attention on a certain part of the text. We're going to look at this example. This is from page 83, and it says, "It, the second stolen book, would inspire Hans Huberman to come up with a plan to help the Jewish fist fighter, and it would show me, once again, that one opportunity leads directly to another, just as risk leads to more risk, life leads to more life, and death to more death." So after reading this passage, I was slightly confused, and I asked myself, why did the author repeat certain words and ideas? What is he trying to emphasize? And then I wrote the circle of life here. I wasn't exactly sure. And I got this idea from the life and death mentioned here. It was these lines in particular that confused me. So what asking a question does is it focuses your attention on this part, and it may not reveal the answer or the meaning of this passage, but it'll help you focus on this as you continue your reading. Step 7, and we're almost finished, so bear with me. The seventh thing you want to do is identify a literary device. And these are the ones that we went over in class specifically, and these are them right here. And what this will do more importantly is it will make you decode the language and expressions used. Marcus Zusak, as we've witnessed, uses a lot of literary devices, and they can be confusing sometimes. The example I took was from page 113, and it says, "To their left, flames and burning books were cheered like heroes." The like right here tells us that it is a simile. We're comparing books to cheered heroes. And then I wrote, it's almost as if the burned books were sacrificed for the good of Germany. So this is just something I paraphrased to help my understanding. And the very last thing you want to do is you want to determine the significance of the passage. So you want to ask yourself these questions. What is the greater meaning of the passage you analyzed? And what does it reveal in terms of plot development? So that's the storyline or story arc. Ooh, this may ring a bell. Character development and or theme development. So why is this passage important in terms of the novel as a whole? What does it tell you? And so that concludes our lesson on textual analysis. Now what I want you guys to do is to try it on your own. So you open this document right here. You annotate it as much as you can. You read through it, annotate it, find all the elements I asked you to find. And then what you do is you open this document right here. Make sure to open this one second, because this is my textual analysis, and it can just show you what I found and what I found interesting in the passage that I chose. So that's it. Good luck with your textual analysis, and I will see you next class.